Hey, good morning, all. This is Saravanan from Head Start. So, before we get into the actual program today, where we'll talk about how we'll be able to raise funds and how we'll be able to create great pitch decks, what we're going to do is we're going to take you through Head Start as to just a couple of minutes of overview about Head Start, and then also introduce the main folks in today's session, who is Dhruv Nath and Chetan, and then they'll take over the session. So Head Start is actually a non-profit organization. It focuses mainly on entrepreneurship. It's been there for a little more than 13 years now in India. It's purely driven by volunteers who are interested in the startup ecosystem. We are in close to about, I think, 28 cities. We've expanded even internationally. Right now we have a small presence in Finland, also in Berlin right now, and we are known to have organized about 3,000 events until now across India. Also, during COVID times, we understand that there are specific initiatives that are going to be helpful to the startup ecosystem. So what we do is we focus on a few kickstart events. There's a lot of opportunities where we bring in industry folks to provide mentorship. We've been facilitating mergers and acquisitions also between startups and also between established companies and startups. There have been dedicated sessions on mental wellness because it's high pressure right now. And also, we are able to connect the people who are seeking jobs in this tough market with organizations that have job openings. And these are some of the things that we are doing, and we would encourage you to visit our website for more details. And also, if anyone's interested in getting in as an volunteer for into Head Start, you can access the website, and there are provisions for you to be able to submit your request, and we'll take it up from there. So this is pretty much about Head Start. Now let me take you through the speaker and the workshop facilitator for today. We are honored to have Dhruv Nath, who's the director of Lead Angels. He's an angel investor, and his experience spans across. He has been in academics as a professor at MDI Gurgaon. In the corporate world, he's been associated with NIIT Limited, and he was the senior vice president there. He's been a top consultant to several top managements across multinational organizations like Glaxo, Nestle, Indian Oil. And the latest part is he's co-authored a great book which is called "The Funding Your Startup and Other Nightmares." It's a great book, and if you get an opportunity, please do go through it. And the other person involved in today's workshop is Chetan. He is the founder of Honest Create. This is an organization, an agency that specializes in creating pitch decks and sales decks. He has studied design from the design school in Cincinnati. He has been involved in consulting roles around marketing, sales, and technology, more than 14 years of experience. He's also a fellow volunteer at Head Start, and currently working with the Gurgaon chapter. This is the introduction about our speakers for today. Uh, Over to you, Dhruv and Chetan now.
Awesome. Thank you, Shabnan. Hi, everyone who's joining us today. Warm. And so, yeah, let's get started. I think the agenda, I'll just speak about the agenda a little bit here so that we are all cognizant of the time we have in hand. We'll start off with Dhruv talking about, few specific models in his book, which I have personally used as well in creating pitches, and I'm definitely going to use more, and we'll pick his brain on that. there are a couple of very specific models in creating your pitches. He'll talk about that to start with. Then I'll also, show you some examples of do's and don'ts while creating a pitch deck specifically, since that's what I specialized in. So that it gives you some sense of what's the sort of a framework to follow once we go to the second part of this workshop, which is where you will be presenting your pitches. Some of you who have some sort of pitch deck ready, I know at least 7 of you have also emailed your pitch decks in the form they have submitted in the form. So we'll come to that session too, and that part of it, that's where you will get specific feedback from me and Dhruv. We'll time it to about 2 minutes, and so that you present for 2 minutes and we give the feedback for 2 to 3 minutes. So we get 5 to 6 minutes for everybody who's joined in. So there is value for everybody in, and this is not just another webinar. You get some specific things, feedback on your own pitch. So let's get started. Dhruv, over to you. I think the let's jump to a little bit about talking about the persistent model, and also your take on how funding has been overall in the post-COVID world.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me here. So, like Sharvanan mentioned, I have been a professor and therefore I like PPTs. So, I will share with you two PPTs. Just tell me if you can see this. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, as Sarvanan mentioned, I have written this book with my co-author, Sushanto Mitra, and it's basically aimed at anyone who either wants to create a startup or already has a startup and doesn't know what to do, how to make it successful, A, and B, how to raise funding. So what I will do is I will just take you through one of the stories from this book, and from there I will try and extract a framework that we have created, which A, helps founders in evaluating their own startup, and B, which investors look at when evaluating startups for possible investment. Right. So I'll take you through one story. The story is about a company called Squirrel. And by the way, that's not a spelling mistake. That's the way the founder wanted to name his company. So, if you look at squirrels in the park, you'll find they normally do two things. One is they find nuts and berries and they eat them. And two is sometimes they don't eat them, but they save them. And why are they saving them? Because sometimes, you'll have a rainy day when you don't get food, or in the Western world, you'll have a snowy day and therefore you won't get food. So, therefore, you need to save. Now, if you look at human beings also need to save, but obviously not food, money. There is a fundamental problem with the saving, right? And you can imagine what that fundamental problem is, right? There's far too many temptations, right? So, Royal Enfield, let's say, launches a new motorbike, and all those young men out there just have to buy it. There's no choice, right? Or, there is a great new movie in town, and you have to go and, watch that movie along with your friends. So, the problem is saving is a very, very tough job. What Squirrel did was they actually watched what used to be done in the olden days, right? And I'll take you back to your grandmother's time for this. See, during your grandmother's time, we used to have something called a gullak. And in fact, many families still use a gullak, as you can see. Right? And this gullak has a small slot, right? You can see it here. Right? So how does it work? So let's say your grandmother buys vegetables, and let's assume she has spent 9 rupees 80 paise. So she gives 10 rupees to the vegetable wala, the sabzi wala, and he gives her 20 paise back as change. That change goes into this little slot in the gullak. Okay. And therefore it is saved. And tomorrow she spends, let's say 1470. She gives 15 rupees, 30 paise back. That 30 paise goes into the gullak. And the reason why this works is that this is painless. Why is it painless? Because if you spend 9 rupees 80 paise, spending an extra 20 paise does not really hurt you, does not really harm you, right? So it works like this. And what Squirrel decided was they said, look, we will now automate this concept. We will automate the Gullak. And to do that, they created an app. And they said, okay, you have to download this app. Now, every time you spend money, whether it is through a credit card or debit card, online banking, UPI, Paytm, wallet, etc., etc. It doesn't matter what, right? What happens is that you get an SMS, correct? And when you get an SMS, this app, Squirrel app, when you registered, you had given it permission to access your SMSs, right? Now, obviously, it has no interest in your personal SMSs, right? So, for example, Chetan, let's say, getting SMSs from his girlfriend. Squirrel is not interested. Chetan, you have a girlfriend, right?
I don't want to admit it right now.
Acha, acha. Okay, okay, okay. So anyway, so I'll just modify my statement. Chetan getting SMSs from one of his girlfriends. So the issue is Squirrel is not interested. What they want to know is how much you have spent, how much Chetan has spent in this case. So what it does is every time it captures how much you've spent, and at the end of the week it totals up your expenses, and that total it rounds up to the next 100, and the balance is saved. Okay, so for example, suppose you have spent, let's say 1,360 rupees, right? It will take 40 rupees more to round it up to 1,400, and that 40 rupees is saved. So it's exactly like the Gullak, except that the Gullak was a manual process. You had to remember to put in money. Here it is automated because you've given those instructions to Squirrel, right? So it's a very, very good, very painless way to save. Um, okay, so what next? See, these guys realized very clearly nobody would pay them for simply helping them to save. But having onboarded these savers, they offered them other financial products and they charged for them. Okay. So what kind of products? Insurance, loans, investment in mutual funds, and possibly other products in the future. And this is where Squirrel made its money because they would get commissions on each one of these. Okay. So that's the business model of Squirrel. Now, getting to the persistent model that Chetan spoke about. Right? So, like I said, this framework actually has been created based on our study of a very large number of startups. I must have studied about 70, 80 of them. And we found that there were things which were common across those which succeeded. And similarly, there were things that were common across those which failed, right? And that's how we created this framework. Each letter of the framework stands for something, right? And let's look at this one by one. First of all, the P stands for problem. Are you solving a problem for the customer? Because if you're not solving a problem, there is no reason for the guy to come to you. Correct? So obviously here you're solving a problem because you're helping people save money and ultimately you're helping them invest money, take loans, buy insurance and so on. All right. So clearly there is a problem being solved. Second, is there an earnings model? Because somewhere not only do you have to solve a problem, you also have to ensure that you make money out of it, right? The customer has to pay you. Again, here the earnings model was clear. While customers would not pay for saving, they would definitely pay for buying insurance, taking a loan, and so on. Okay, so there was an earnings model. Third, size of the market, and you'll notice if you take the first letter of each of these, I'm building up to the word, the framework, persistent. So size of the market is important because if you're creating a startup, you're not creating it because you want to stagnate at 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs. You are creating it because you want to grow, and you want to grow dramatically, and you want to grow large, right? 5 crores, 10 crores, 50 crores, 100 crores, isn't it? Now, you cannot grow unless the size of the market itself is large enough, right? Here, obviously, there was a huge market because essentially, who are the customers for Squirrel? Potentially all middle class people. And in India, the number of middle class people is probably close to 40 crores. That's a phenomenal market, huge market, right? So, size of the market, no issues at all. However, there is one problem, which is sometimes you find that the market is very crowded. Okay. Which means there are other players, there are other businesses which are doing more or less the same thing, and maybe they are much larger guys doing the same thing. So in this case, you'll notice that there are lots and lots of people doing the same thing, right? So there are guys like Paisa Bazaar, Policy Bazaar, Paytm Money, ET Money, Zerodha, Bank Bazaar, lots and lots and lots of these guys, right? So how would a small company like Squirrel survive in a market that has all these huge guys? They can't compete, right? So when the market is crowded, what you need to do ideally is to identify a large enough subset of that market, and I'll call that a niche, right? A niche, but a large enough niche which is not crowded. And look at the smartness of the founders of Squirrel. What they said was, look, if you target people who are in their 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s, right? They are already into buying mutual funds, they are already into saving, they're already into buying insurance, taking loans, and so on. So that's a very crowded market. However, if you look at people who are still in college, or maybe in their first job, or maybe doing their post graduation or MBA or whatever, they typically have not got into these habits, and therefore that segment is a non-crowded space, and it's a niche because you're basically then targeting youngsters, typically in the age group of about 18 to 30, right? Even that's huge, right? Because if you look at youngsters within the class of middle class people in India, that itself would probably be around 10 crores, right? That's a phenomenal market. So they very successfully identified a large enough non-crowded niche, which was youngsters. Okay. Next question, scalability. And again, notice I'm picking up letters from the word persistent. All right. How scalable is Squirrel? Now, here you must remember one thing. Any business which has a lot of manual involvement is not very scalable because, when you want to, let's say, double revenues, you'll have to double the manpower. And it's not easy to double manpower, especially if you're large, right? Also, when you double manpower, you have to double the infrastructure, the buildings, the laptops, the desks, and so on, right? So it's not scalable. But Squirrel is a pure digital business. Dependence on manpower is very, very low. It's automated, right? And pure digital businesses are very highly scalable. So no problem here, right? So Squirrel is a highly scalable business. Next, risks. Every business has risks. And please remember, since you guys are looking at pitching to investors, one quick suggestion I have, very, very important suggestion, do not downplay risks. Investors need to understand. They need to believe that you have truly understood your business and therefore you understand the risks. Because please remember, investors are smart. They know every business has to have risks. You cannot have a risk free business. You look at Sunil Mittal, he was running Airtel. He thought there was no risk. He was the market leader. Suddenly, Mukesh Ambani came in out of the blue, right? So every business has risks, and please do not give investors the impression that you do not have any risks. Let them realize that you have risks, but you are figuring out ways to beat that risk. And what is that way? The biggest risk, incidentally, is the risk of competition. And for that, what you need to do is you need to have an entry barrier, which essentially means, so let's say this is your business, you have to ensure that you do something in that business so that your competitor cannot get in, steal your customers, eat into your market share, and potentially kill you. And that is what we call an entry barrier, a barrier to prevent your customer from coming in. And incidentally, a very good entry barrier is if you have some kind of innovative solution which is non-copyable, preferably one or two patents, because patents, have a legal framework where they cannot be copied. Now, very obviously, if you look at Squirrel, there is not too much of an entry barrier, although over time, at least amongst youngsters, the trust and the brand become entry barriers, right? But still, it's not significant. So, again, a message to all of you guys, if your entry barrier is not significant, you must grow rapidly so that your brand and that rapid spread becomes a kind of entry barrier, because by now your name is known, right? So very often entry barriers build up over time. Okay, so I've covered 8 of these letters. Two more. One is the team, extremely important. In fact, very and team normally starts with the founder. It is, I'm an investor. I've been an angel investor for the last 7 odd years. And we very firmly believe, even if you have an average business model, right? But you have a great founder and a great team, they will figure out a way to make this model work and be successful. But if you have a great business model but a weak team, and if we have time, I can share examples there, it won't work. It just cannot work, and very likely you will not get money. Okay, so team is extremely important. And the final thing is, where is the business, right? You may have a great business model, you may have a terrific team, highly innovative, you got patents and so on, but ultimately, are you getting revenues? Are you getting customers? Are they increasing month on month, quarter on quarter? That ultimately is what you need to see, and that is, by the way, what the investor sees.
Yeah, Dhruv, Rahul has actually asked a question which
Yeah,
is very pertinent to what you just spoke about.
yeah.
What is a good time to go for investment, and is it it depends on revenue, team, product stage, and any other factor? I think the any other factors is what you spoke in that model. If you go back to that slide of yours, uh,
Yeah,
I think those are the other factors that are out there.
yeah.
Does that answer the question, Rahul, or you have anything specific to ask
So
on
what
this?
I can do, Chetan, is let me just, I think I have 2 slides here.
Sure.
Let me take these and then answer the question. Then I'll get back to that Wickham model. All right. So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
give me 2 minutes to finish this, Rahul. I'll answer that. Yeah. Okay. Then, of course, there is the English meaning of the word persistent, right? Which means you've got to keep on and on at it, because you'll have ups and downs. You'll have all kinds of problems. Suddenly, SEBI will come out with some new rules. You'll have RBI with new rules. If you guys were running startups 3 years back, you would remember there was something called the angel tax, right? And they have all kinds of these things happening all the time. You've just got to keep on and on at it, otherwise you're finished, right? So persistent is the way to be. I've spoken about what you need to do to create a successful startup. What do investors look for? Actually, exactly the same thing, because both investors as well as founders have the same aim in mind, isn't it? Uh, a successful company able to take care of competition, highly scalable, good solid earnings model, achieving traction, potentially with some kind of innovative solution. So both of them look for exactly the same thing, correct? Okay, so what I will do is I'll stop for a minute here. Excuse me, 1 minute. Yeah, so let me just quickly tackle Rahul's question. One thing you have to remember, Rahul, is that funding should not be taken because it's the done thing, because everybody is doing it, because it is fashionable. No, funding should be done only if you need funding, right? Now, where are the situations where you will need funding? And that will also tell you the stage. First of all, let's say you're in a B2C business, right? Now, B2C businesses require a huge amount of spend on marketing. And unless you do a solid amount of marketing spend, right, you will not be able to scale up rapidly. And if you do not scale up rapidly, you'll have other guys with money who will scale faster than you, your competition, right? So if you're in a B2C business, yes, you do need funding. If you have to create a, let's say, a complex product which requires a lot of time and manpower, again, unless you have your own sources, you will need funding. Yeah. But if you are, let's say, in a B2B business, so let's, for example, take, suppose you are in a consulting business, you actually don't require funding, because all you need is those few consultants, and your business is going to come in through field sales, and there is no product to be developed, right? So you don't need funding. So one important issue is take funding only when you really need it, right? Number two, you asked me a question, when you take funding. You should try and defer it uh, till you really need it, because obviously the earlier you raise it, the lower your valuation is going to be, and therefore the higher the dilution of your shareholding. And the problem is, one is, of course, you've diluted your own shareholding, but two, equally important, if you've diluted too much of a shareholding. So, for example, let's say you've raised 1 crore and you've diluted 30%. In the next round of funding, the VC who comes in, he says, boss, you've diluted too much. You have very little control over your company. I will not fund you, right? So diluting too much too early on is not a good idea, which is why you should defer it till whatever stage is required. B, I mentioned one thing called traction. I think in today's environment, especially after the COVID crisis, once upon a time, angel investors would invest based on ideas. Today, unfortunately, that's not true, because many angel investors have burnt their fingers. They've lost money, including me. And in the COVID crisis, people have said, okay, what is it that you are getting? What are the revenues you're getting? Prove to me that your business is viable. Prove to me that you have traction. Only then will I fund you. So ideally, you should go to investors with some level of revenue. Of course, how much revenue really depends on your business model. So, for example, if you have a high margin business, they would typically look at something like 5 to 6 lakhs per month, and a growing 5 to 6 lakhs, right? Average of 5 to 6 lakhs per month. So that typically is my answer to your question. If you have any specifics, please go ahead and ask.
Yeah, I think that that helps through. And also, I think to if I can take that liberty to also show this table in your book,
Ah,
uh,
wow.
that actually helped me. If you're creating this table, sometimes just putting it down things helps you. What is your problem and everything? I mean, 2 days ago when the book came, I was doing it for one of the pitch deck I was creating, and that really gave a structure. So I think we have some more questions, but just in the interest of time, I know we have to talk about Vikram as well.
Yeah.
We'll come back to Vikram once we are taking one of the examples of the attendees, so that you can tell them Vikram with their example. Does that
Sure.
work for you?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure. Perfect. Perfect.
Awesome. Awesome. So I think there are some more questions which I have in mind when we reach that specific stage. Krishna, Mansi, we'll come back to you on those questions for sure. Just so that we also go to the next phase and we get started on your pitch decks. I'll just show some examples of some design do's and don'ts and creation of the pitch deck specifically. Just let me share the screen once. Second. We good,
Yes,
right?
we can see.
Can
Yeah,
you
yeah,
see the
we
screen?
can.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
we can.
I have done this a couple of times with Head Start and also outside Head Start. So uh, last time we did a small poll, and this was on LinkedIn as well as the product summit. That what's the most important aspect of a pitch deck specifically? And surprisingly, a lot of founders and people who saw this answered the story and the visualization as the most important part. But why surprising is, whenever I talk to entrepreneurs trying to create a pitch deck, or even to get it designed specifically professionally by me, most they focus on is design. So that's actually the icing on the cake. It's more like design is important to make it look good, no doubt about it. But I think as long as the story is coming together, the flow of the slides, and the Vikram that specifically Dhruv will talk about, what's your key message? That's the important part. And the visualization, communicating more with visuals and less with words. That's equally important. So once we look at your pitch decks later on, we'll try to focus on these three aspects as well. So as we all know, investors, as even Dhruv was saying, have burned their hands now. they don't have a lot of attention span, because that's natural with this generation anyway. So these three aspects stand out, narrating a story to create an emotional connect, because if it creates an emotional connect, they would read the rest of the, presentation. And Dhruv, you can say probably here that how many times you have seen the initial slides and then got hooked on, and how many times you skipped, the presentation just because it really didn't attract you initially. So that's why,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think about the story, I'll show one example of a story of a product called Miviro. It's an app, it's a social app which helps you connect with people of similar passion throughout the world, not just in India. And I'll just skip the slides without talking, so you get an idea why the storytelling is important initially in your pitch deck, and how it's coming out visually as well as in terms of design. So I'll just switch the slides on a count of 1, 2, 3, so you can get an idea. So finally, we introduce the product after giving a context. So this is what a typical storytelling is. We've taken an example of a persona to create this story, and this just helps somebody reading it, even if they know about, okay, passion is a very soft term in general, right? People think, okay, what will an app do about passion? But once you tell them the problem that exists in its totality, then that the investor might take it a little more seriously. Okay, probably there is a need for something like this. And that's exactly what we tried to do here. I was counting, 1, 2, 3, just switching the slide. The only reason is because, if you don't get the message out in few seconds, as little as 3 seconds, it just requires a lot of reading after that. And that's exactly what you don't want to do in every slide. I recommend that, like you play Pictionary, where you are, sort of creating, drawing something and having the other person guess. You should try your key slides to draw without somebody, without writing much, so that you explain it with just visuals. And that's the idea of visualization of the slide, not just the design part. Like, for example, this particular startup, and wanted to talk to the investor and tell them that we are a cloud kitchen company. If we take your money and invest in opening a cloud kitchen, we won't just be selling biryani, which we are doing right now. By the way, very famous Kolkata biryani brand, if some of you are from Kolkata, would know. Uh, so so what they want to say is that we launch multiple brands, so that, in the evening we are selling some, rolls and snacks. In the morning we are selling some milkshakes. So we have sort of maximized the usage of the kitchen. So instead of this, creating something like this, where, the brands are on the top and you're telling the time and everything, what time of the day, what brand is specific, and of course at the bottom, to which target audience that brand is specific to. It just, helps them connect. They might remember this visual more than what was written on the slide. So that's the idea. you know and a couple more slides where you can write less content by just drawing a diagram. Like here, one option is to have the investor read everything what's written, and the other option is just to create something like this, where a platform that basically connects the digital fans as well as, the create the celebrities, does not exist. So that's one way to show the problem as well. Here is another example of a team slide, where rather than writing, how and what the team has done, there is obviously sometimes a connection that can be found between the founders. And here you can see that, the two people were connected in one ABP group, and then they found Miviro. So it just helps, tell the investor that, okay, where they're coming from, and there's less to read, in this again. Competition slide, it's very important to not just mention your brands and just say this is the competition. A lot of times there is an option to create a matrix where you can put one aspect of your business and the industry, and maybe another aspect, which are the two variables, key variables of your industry, and put and map all the other competitors on that, sort of a matrix.
So
Yeah,
Chetan, can I just comment on this?
sure.
One piece of advice, one suggestion to all those who are listening here. This is a very commonly used slide. By the way, I agree with everything that Chetan has said. That's exactly the way you need to um, make your pitch. This slide is very commonly used by many people who are making a pitch. Unfortunately, I find that in most cases it is highly biased. So if you look at the top right corner, right, the top right quadrant, which is the where you have the stars, right? Usually you'll find that the guy who's presenting his company is right at the top and everybody else is way behind, which is a very biased view. So the investor gets the impression that either the guy is trying to fool
Yeah.
them or maybe he hasn't really studied competition. So if you have a slide where you're comparing yourselves with the competition, and you have to do that, you have to be realistic, right? Because the investor knows that there will be competition, and there will be competition which be stronger than you in some areas. But unfortunately, most founders try to project themselves
Right.
as absolutely great and the other guys are the pits. That's a very bad strategy.
It's a great feedback, and I'll take that on this slide as well. This is actually,
So I'm
good
not referring to
feedback
this
that you
slide.
need to be realistic.
Yeah, I'm not referring to this slide. I'm
Yeah.
saying in general when you
No,
talk about
I know.
competition.
See, a lot of times, the founders also want, okay, we to be shown that we are the best. So sometimes you need to push them back and tell them. I think you gave a very good logic to push them back. That, okay, let's be realistic, because investors look for realism, not just superficialism, right? In terms of numbers, also, I think you can say that a lot of times clearly marked numbers also helps, knowing, like, here you can talk about your operational excellence, how you using distributed cooking, but I think investor will just focus more on sometimes what is the end result of it. So that's why, clearly marking it on the right side, like here, the operational excellence or the break even time is coming down from 6 to 3 months, makes a difference. When you're doing a gap analysis of your market, just marking out numbers in different font sizes, in different colors, helps understand better. It's rather than them to read inside. A lot of common mistakes founders make is they'll use the same font size. So just on the design terms, showing this, some of the key growth metrics can be neatly done, because here you don't need to design a lot and do a lot of things just to show the numbers. So just to focus on that more. So I think, just to sum it up, if we can parallel it with the persistent model and try to at least talk about these 10 slides. And 10 slide doesn't mean that you need to only have 10 slides in your pitch deck. The idea is that you need to cover these aspects in your pitch deck, and that's what makes a pitch deck good. So I think this comes to some sort of a summary of what I wanted to talk about in terms of design, so that when we are evaluating your pitches right now and whatever you want to show, there can be evaluated in terms of design on these aspects, and in terms of the content and storyline of what Dhruv spoke about. Hope that helped. So we'll take some questions, Dhruv. There are a lot of them who have answered, actually asked questions, I beg your pardon. And like one question which I wanted to talk later is how important is to get the TAM, the SAM, and the SOM, the addressable market, basically. A lot of times they'll make. Krishna, you want to ask that? Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hey guys, really great presentation. Thanks for giving it. It was clear and simple. So my question is, during the early stages, founders might not have the complete idea of what is the total market, the SAM and SOM. So how right is it for the founders to get all these three parameters for the pre-seed or the seed stage funding?
Yeah. So firstly, can you please expand on these acronyms? TAM, I presume, is total available
Addressable
accessible
market
market,
and service addressable market.
Addressable market, yes.
and SOM.
Serviceable and
I have no idea what SOM means.
No, you asked the question, so I thought you would know, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, let me explain why market size is important, because all these three are related to market size, right?
Mhm.
When you are looking for funding, and I'm assuming your question is with regard to funding. See, when you are looking at funding, you will get in an angel investor initially, right? And at the next step, you will probably get in one more angel investor, or maybe at that stage of VC, and then another VC, and so on. Why is each of these investors putting money into your company? They are putting money because when they invest, they will invest at a particular valuation, and 4 or 5 or 3 or 6 years down the line, they would like to get an exit, which means they will sell their shares that they have in your company to the next round investor, okay, at hopefully a much higher valuation. Correct? So essentially, what is happening is every investor who comes in, the one of the primary concerns he has is, will I be able to get an exit at some stage, maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, buy and therefore sell my shares to the next investor? Okay, because that's the only way he can get an exit. Now, why would that next investor exit? Because he also wants an exit after 4 or 5 years, right? Which means he's also expecting one more investor to come in. So this is an unending chain. Every investor who invests hopes and assumes that at some stage he will be able to sell to the next guy. And that is only possible at a higher valuation if you keep growing consistently. And you can keep growing consistently only if the size of the market is large. So if you have a startup in a market size which is not large, at some stage investors will stop investing, which means even before that, the investor will say, look, I will not put in money because I know that I will not be able to get an exit because the other guy will not buy my shares. I'll give you one example, right? I had invested in a company called Quaco. You know what Make My Trip does, right? They basically are into hotel booking, they are into airline booking, and so on and so forth. Very, very crowded space. What this guy decided was, Quaco, they said, we will only focus on specialized resorts, what we call boutique resorts, right? Which is typically, 10 room, 12 room, 15 room kind of place, either in the hills or on the beach, which normally gets completely lost on Make My Trip. So we all thought it was a great idea, and they started growing very rapidly. But they came to a stage where they realized they already had about 800 resorts in their database, but the total number of resorts they could identify in the country were not more than about 1400. So now they stagnated. And at this stage, they wanted to get more money to, diversify the business. Nobody was willing to invest, right? So that's the problem, which is why you have to look at something where the market size is large. It doesn't mean that you have to tackle the entire market today. You can't. Unless your surname is Ambani, you can't, right? And I don't see any Ambani on this platform right now. But at least in the future, you should be able to grow to a large enough market size. So that's the reason why market size becomes extremely important, and all your time, etc., are linked to that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It is pretty clear.
yeah. So we'll also start the second session now. The second part of this session, where feel free to show some slides if you have it ready. We got pitch decks from 7 of you. I'll just call out the names if you are here and if you would like to present. First is the Achievers. Is somebody there from Achievers? The second being BYER, Buyer. Is that how you say it? I'm just assuming you'll just put it in chat and talk about the. Okay, the third being HIDs, right? I think we just got
Yeah, Santosh.
Santosh. Okay, lovely Santosh. So So I think first thing before Santosh shows, a lot of times, entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs have this little bit of a concern that, okay, my idea is really close to me. I don't want to show it out so that if it can be seen, and, there are a lot of other people. I would say that, ideas are actually dime a dozen. It's the execution that matters more. And that's why of late now the trend has changed. People have started to talk about their pitches more, because it's very important you take feedback. And right now, including us, we have 25 other entrepreneurs here. So I would encourage you to show your presentation. At least if there is something confidential, you can avoid something very critical, but feel free to share it and take the feedback. So Santosh, would you like to present? We'll give you 2 to 3 minutes to present, and then me and Dhruv will take some feedback on it.
Santosh, you have the co-host access. Please present.
Hello.
Yeah, Santosh,
Am I-
please go on. Yeah, we can see the screen. Yeah.
Okay. Is my slide is visible to everyone?
Yes, we can see.
Good morning, everyone. It's a nice conversation. Actually, we got to know a lot of things. We are young entrepreneurs. We are a team of 13 people, and the company name is Heights Technologies Private Limited. We are into AR, VR, MR solutions. So I am just taking over my slides actually. Okay. So the problem actually we are solving, we are creating content for all kind of education and industrial training. First of all, now we are trying to solve. So we are into AR, VR, and XR solutions. The problem actually we are addressing, we have find one problem in education, that while learning, the learning is more theoretical, and the training is more trainer oriented. So we have find one solution by using AR, VR, and XR technology. We can close this gap a lot actually. But when we come to quality education, the price is much more higher, right? So right now there is no easy way exist, while anyone can experience the learning, anyone can experience the training, right? So here Heights exists actually. Heights platform can used by anyone, any individual, and also it can be used by organizations also, like education institutions and industrials, corporate houses, and a lot can use actually. So if I will classify all these things, the first one is that a platform where everyone can learn in classroom and out classroom. As we describe that study is in 3 stages. One is classroom, lab, and workshop. Everything can be done in our platform actually by using XR, AR, VR, and XR technology. And educational institutions also use our platform to train their students, to train their teachers, and they can do workshops and lab by using our platform also. And by this, students can save money, and also educational institutions also save a lot of money. And if I will take market validation, see, as a company new to this industry, I have found this information by Googling actually, but somehow we have done some piloting, we have done some market studies. So by this, we found there are 1.5 million schools, and near about there are 22,700 engineering, IT, and diploma colleges, and there are 12,000.
Santosh, sorry to interrupt. Can you wrap it up in 30 more seconds?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
So our business model is very simple. Student will again use for classroom, internship, and post-study skill set. Educational institutions also use for classroom, lab, and training, less training. And near about, they can show their COEs in a best way. Industries also use for warehouse management, plant and process maintenance, and training. And we can adapt the market by doing partnerships with schools, colleges, universities, skill and industrial training institutions. Even government is spending a lot of money by DDU, JPY, PM, KBI also, right? And if I will go for competition, there are a lot of companies providing this, but as Dhruva sir told that the right top corner is showing star, but honestly, our technology, the platform is very very affordable for everyone. We will start training by just with rupees 99, and we are using AR VR technology. That's a great one, actually, the next generation. And if I will tell about my competitors, some maximum competitors are into a one kind of training that.
Santosh, sorry to interrupt. We'll have to take a hard stop here.
Sure.
So yeah, sorry, in the interest of time, this is what we can do.
No, I think this is good to give. I think Dhruv is already smiling because he's there in the industry, and I think I'll let him first talk about the overall how he pitched and what's the key message coming out.
Yeah. So I have two quick comments. Firstly, one question. In this event, Chetan, are we looking at the business idea or are we looking only at the pitch?
We're looking at some specific portions of the pitch deck, whatever they want to show in the 2 minutes. Okay. And I think looking at pitch, it just makes a lot more relevant because that's the most important part. But if they want to show any business idea, they still have to talk about their pitch first, right? So they can do that quickly.
Okay. So maybe this is a good time for me to talk about the Wickham model, right?
Yeah.
So I will just share my screen. Just hold on. So please see this in conjunction with what Chetan showed, because I agree with everything he's saying. I will, this is what you need to talk about in your pitch, the persistent business plan. So Chetan already spoke about this. I just want to mention one thing. When you talk valuation, it's always a good idea not to give a valuation, but to check the interest levels in the audience before proposing your valuation. Because, if the interest levels are not very high and your valuation is too high, then you've just lost the battle, right? So see what the interest level is and then decide what valuation you're going to project. Anyway, let me come to this one comment, right? And then I'll come to Santosh's presentation, right? How many slides do you need to have in your pitch? And you can see, when you have long presentations, this is the result. And you can see these guys, right? The guy is very happy presenting. But by the way, this is not what I'm saying about Santosh. He did not have too many slides, right? So, but this is a general comment. The problem is, communication is not what you want to say. See, a pitch is what? It's a communication exercise. It is not what you want to say. It is what the listener receives and retains and remembers, right? That's important. Now, I will just talk about this quick concept that I have introduced in the book. It's the concept of Wickham. And I want to take 2-3 examples. You remember this? Achhe din aane wale hain. Who said this? Prime Minister Modi in his 2014 campaign. That's all you remember. You don't remember all the other things he kept talking about. But the one thing you remember is Achhe din aane wale hain. And therefore people voted for him. Then if you look at Yes, We Can. Anybody remembers this? This was President Obama's campaign punchline, right? Yes, we can. Okay. And, it tended to galvanize, it tended to motivate American voters. Then if you look at Maggie, 2 minutes. You don't remember anything about Maggie, but 2 minutes makes it very, very clear. You don't have to cook it for more than 2 minutes, right? Now, what are these? Even Fevicol. What is the key message? The key message is Fevicol makes things stick, right? So if you look at all these, I have one concept which I wanted to share, which is what's your key message? See, please remember, as as a presenter, when you're making a pitch, I think Chetan mentioned this very, very correctly. The person sitting across the table, the investor, if you have lots and lots of things you're saying, he's completely lost. He doesn't know what to notice. He doesn't know what to remember. You as the presenter have to decide what your key message is. Prime Minister Modi was very clear. Key message was, Achhe din aane wale hain. Maggie is very clear, 2 minutes, right? So you have to remember what your key message is, and that your pitch has to revolve around this. Correct? Okay. Now, why do I say this? Because, people cannot absorb too many concepts. It's impossible. You have to decide what they should absorb rather than they deciding, right? And that should be your key. And by the way, I'll say this a different way. The main thing is to keep the main thing, and that's your Vikram. Okay, what's your key message, right? So let me just stop this and get back to Santosh's presentation. I think it's a good concept. I think it's a very good concept. However, the key message has been lost somewhere, right? I don't know what the key message is, right? I think there is, please remember one thing, in a pitch, you don't, in a 2-minute pitch, now you remember Chetan had told you that it's a 2 to 3 minute pitch. In a 2 to 3 minute pitch, you cannot explain everything. It's impossible. And if you try and explain lots of things, you lose the investor's interest, right? In a 2 to 3 minute pitch, you have to get the investor's interest. Ah, this is worth listening to. I want to spend more time. That is what you want. You want the investor to say, good, I will have coffee with this young man or young girl, and I will spend more time and understand the business. Create an interest. Don't try and cover everything, right? So I think, Santosh, in your case, the good thing is that you had a lot of graphics, you had a lot of visuals as against, and you didn't have too much text in any one slide. But if I were to look at it an investor, I'm not too sure what the end result is. So I would suggest a couple of things. Number one, using VR for learning is a good idea, but please focus. You know, you talked about industrial training, you talked about companies, you talked about schools, you talked about, I don't know what else. I'm lost. I don't know where you're focusing and as a startup, I know you cannot do all of these, right? Number one. Number two, I also know if you get into one area and you grow within that, you become a market leader. But if you get into too many areas, you cannot be a market leader in any one of them, right? And therefore, I'm not interested. So you decide which of them you want to focus on, right? Is it schools? Is it industry? Is it ITIs? That is a decision you have to take, right?
Yeah.
The other suggestion I have is, this is not hard hitting enough. So if you can share an example, and I go back to Chetan's comments, start with an example. For example, let's say you're focusing on schools, right? People learn about atoms and molecules in chemistry, right? However, they actually cannot visualize this. They cannot see this in the lab. Here, using VR and AR technology, we actually help you create an atom, and you can have the guy standing there and looking at atoms all around him, and electrons revolving around. It's a huge learning plus, huge. But that message goes to the investor only if you show an example. So it's a good idea to show an example first, to put the message across, and then focus on your Vikram.
Yeah.
That's my quick comment. Yeah.
No, I think that's super awesome because you being in the industry also helps, right? So that's why I thought, and it's good that you mentioned that it's a great concept because
Yeah.
I'm not from the industry. For me to get it, Santosh, just adding on to that feedback, it took me a while to understand. It should not take me that while. Even if I am not from the industry, some of the investors may not understand the industry as well. So for them, as he said, right, put some visuals around, AR, VR, because you have such a visual thing at the end of the day. I think adding those visuals early on will give me an idea what are you into. So
In
that's
fact, if you have time, of course, yeah, you didn't have too much time, maybe create a little demo and show that. Suddenly you've got people's interest. So the key in this kind of pitch is create an interest. Don't
correct.
say everything. You can't say everything.
Keep it short. Yep. So I think next we'll go to Vijay. Vijay, would you like to share? We'll make you the co-host. Sangeeta, if you can make it.
Yes, I'll do that.
While Vijay is presenting, if the next person can put his name in the queue and if they have some pitch deck ready, please do that. Please go on, Vijay.
Yeah. Can you make me the host? Host, okay.
Chetan, this is Amit here. I don't have anything to present, but
Yeah.
I have maybe one thing to share. So I am a co-founder of a company. I've raised money, and I've pitched to dozens of investors. Okay, and I have lost a number of investors, which I wanted to share. Today I came here, I saw this, and I thought I'll share.
Sure.
See, most of the investors are not technical people. I did not quite figure this out very well in the beginning. because I found out some of the investors are financial guys, chartered accountants. They have no clue what is AR, VR, A, B, C, D. Okay. You blast them with all this technology. I run an energy company. Okay. So I started with a lot of energy related stuff and how I will do this and that. And it just completely, it was lost on them.
Yeah.
So
So
some of them they left. Okay. So I got very upset because they would simply close the call and go away.
Yeah.
And I asked people, I said, what happened? He said, no, they didn't understand anything. I said, what did they not understand? He said, they did not understand what is the opportunity and how they can make money out of it. That is what they are initially interested in. Okay. Now you tell them all these things, right? They don't understand, they go away. So what I learned is keep the technical element very small. Explain the opportunity, explain how you are able to exploit that opportunity. It is a bait in the river. The fish has to bite in 10 seconds. If you make him think too much, he will close the call and go. All the fancy stuff about technology, keep it for the next call with a demo, etc., whatever you want.
Correct.
Okay, where you prove that, I know how to do this. Okay, so the opportunity, how you will address this, and your team. The team matters. Okay, so if you have, if the team is not credible, then whatever you say will not work. Right? You can't do it. So in few minutes, if you can't do this, then everything else is a waste, right? And so I'm sharing this because once you lose an investor, right, they will not even tell you why they are going away. Most of the time, they're simply going to go away. But thankfully, I was fortunate enough that I had some friends through whom I met them, and they said, you know what, you confused the issue totally. You totally messed it up. You are talking all kinds of stuff which nobody understands. You think it's great, but for them, it's all gobbledygook, So plain English, and don't talk technology except very, very little, which is easily understandable, and keep all the fancy stuff for subsequent meetings. That is the only way you will get ahead.
Absolutely, Amit. I think that helps a lot. And you coming from your experience, I think this is for Santosh. I mean, I know that after Santosh showed, you had this idea to tell him, and I think it's for everybody who will come in. I think coming from a person, startup founder who's already learned the hard way, this really helps. So thanks a lot, and feel free to show if you have anything once I think Vijay has done with his presentation.
Yeah, I don't have anything just now, but even now sometimes I have a problem communicating in a very, very succinct manner in a very short period of time, because you really have to simplify. And investors come from many backgrounds. Some are tech investors, some are financial guys, some are totally different than that. So you really need to be able to reach out to each one of them. If somebody says, okay, give me a glimpse of your solution, you should be ready with it and you can show it, but don't lead with it. And what Dhruv said, if you can give a kind of a use case, like this is how it works. No, it sets the context. People can relate to it, because some of the new businesses are so new that people can't relate to it.
Of course,
if they can't relate to it, then they don't know what to make of it. And if there's confusion, then there is no decision.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they'll go away.
Would love to talk more. Just in the interest of time, I would hate to do this, but let's just.
This is all I had to share. So please carry on with your presentation.
Okay. No, wonderful. So can I make a couple of quick comments? Firstly, Amit, can you show us your face?
Yeah, I will show you my face, but I have this COVID haircut, so I look awful.
Don't worry. Oh, okay. That's not a haircut. That's a hair grow.
It's a hair grow for the last 10 months. And everybody, I'm worried that I may scare away investors with my haircut, but I don't know what to do about it.
No. So by the way, a lot of people right now on Zoom are at the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, including.
Yeah, that's the free background. That
I know.
People give
I tried that once. Okay, so Amit, very, very good point. Very, very good point. Ultimately, you want the money. You don't necessarily want the guy to understand your business.
Absolutely not. If investors begin to understand your business too much, that is also a problem.
No. There I don't agree with you. But anyway, let's keep
I'm just joking. Not in the first presentation.
Yeah. So, first of all, when you're pitching to one investor, you have a problem. But when you're pitching to a group of investors, for example, I am from Lead Angels. When you pitch to Lead Angels, you'll typically have 30, 40 guys. And I fully agree with you. Almost everybody will have no clue what the hell you're talking about, but they'll be excited provided they see an opportunity. Absolutely. So, for example, in today's environment, anything to do with machine learning, anything to do with VR, AR, right? Anything to do with blockchain, suddenly people are excited, but they have no clue what the hell it is.
I
So
agree
they
with
will
you.
typically be those one or two people in the audience who understand your business. They will be appointed what we call deal leads, and they
Correct.
will spend time with you to understand the intricacies of the
Yeah,
technology and the business. Then they will go and try and convince these guys, right? So I
you're
agree with
100%
you
right. Yeah.
100%. Basically, you're talking to businessmen, you're talking to investors, you're not talking
Yeah.
to tech guys. Absolutely.
Correct.
Incidentally, just a quick comment. Um, the picture I saw seems to indicate that it's an agri-tech kind of solution. That's a
Yes.
very hot priority today. And we are getting a lot of opportunities to invest in agri-tech companies. So if you're interested, just connect with me. If you can share my email ID with Amit.
I think
Yeah,
Uh,
Dhruv, I am not in agri-tech. I am in energy management. That is another emerging story today because,
okay.
Amit,
India is,
maybe in the
yeah,
interest of time, you can talk about it offline. Dhruv's email will
Yeah,
be
sure.
there.
Sure.
And
yeah. But Chetan, I just wanted to share one thing which will be very helpful to everybody. It's not about me. I'm just sharing. See, uh, typically in the angel stage, right, you will be pitching to many of these aggregation companies. They get a number of investors, they aggregate a number of investors, and they arrange calls, right? So there are so many of these venture capital angel funding things like Inflection Point Ventures and etc. 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 They have a number of small people who say we will invest, and IPV will manage the interaction with the investor, with the entrepreneur. That's how it works. So what will happen is that many of these guys could be high net worth individuals who don't understand any technology. They are just committed to maybe put 1 crore, 2 crore each.
yeah,
Since they do not understand the business, they just want to understand, as Dhruv said, what's the opportunity. They will appoint technology specialists. Okay, so when I pitch to one guy, one such I pitched to Chennai Angels. Some of you may be aware of Chennai Angels. See, they got IIT professors there. Okay,
yeah,
because they don't understand energy management. They don't know whether I'm bullshitting them or not, right? Because they come from the various different places. So they call upon domain experts
Yeah.
and
yeah,
they discuss with them that, hey, does this guy make sense? Is he talking? Can he do it? Is it doable? Or is he saying that, he's doing some SpaceX kind of stuff, right?
yeah,
Which this guy can't do.
yeah,
So they will also evaluate your story once you're through the first round, where
exactly,
you got their interest.
correct.
So you will have an opportunity to deal with a domain expert because none of these guys are going to give you money unless they've got it vetted by another expert. And that's the time when you can show your technical expertise, but not in the first round. That's all. I will not take away anybody else's pitching time. Thank you.
No, I think super helpful. This was a very helpful conversation. Thank you so much, Amit. Yeah, love to talk more offline. I'll definitely text you, email you.
I'll
So
drop my email here on the
sure,
chat box.
sure, please. So over to you, Vijay. I think you have an opportunity to also sort of pitch, no pressure, or to an potential investor. As Dhruv mentioned, he's they not just them. I think agri-tech is a hot market now as well.
Mhm.
Please go on.
Sure. I hope you can see the screen, right? Okay, so I run this company called I Support Farming, right? We are working on a vision of bringing smiles in farmers' lives, right? So who we are a farm to fork startup working with the vision of increasing the market access, better price realization, and profitability for the small and marginal farmers through technology, wherein we are also enabling traceability of food. Started in 2016 and headquartered in Chennai. So actually, the problem, if you look at what we are doing is, actually the problem is the broken market linkage. Because if the farmer, he sells the produce for 10 rupees and it goes through a lot of hands, and the consumer usually buys it for 30 rupees, right? So it is like 5 to 6 times of what the farmer gets, right? So, and apart from that, because of the low land holding, the margin what the farmer gets is very low. And also, if you go a couple of steps back, even in the production itself, they have a high input cost and low productivity. So these are the couple of challenges the farmers have. And actually, what the solution what we have is a product called Farmingly, where we procure the materials from the farmers, process it, and sell the produce of the farmers. And apart from that, we also work in the entire value chain of agriculture. So we help them in the technology advisory to increase the production, and we deliver hand-picked inputs at a discounted rate. And we also help them in arranging working capital through bank loans or P2P lending. So it's more like a full stack product for the farmers, right from selling the produce to all the way to giving them the working capital. So, and like I said, no, we procure, process, and sell it to the sell it. So we procure it from the farmers, process it through Farmingly, and we are selling it to the horecas, hotels, restaurants, and cafes. And also we have a direct-to-consumer product called Farmingly. So, farmer stores, just a direct-to-consumer product. And on the infrastructure, if you look at, we are working with close to 1,200 plus farmers. We have 3 verticals. It's crop, poultry, and aquaculture, right? And apart from that, we also have around 100 tons of grain storage capacity, and we have a poultry processing unit of around 5 tons per day. So this is the overall what we have right now. And again, this is a traction thing we haven't actually mastered, right? So, like I said earlier, we have 3 different verticals. They
Vijay, so sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
You have 30 seconds to wrap up.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll just
Thank
run
you.
you through. Run you through the pitch deck. Probably you can share the feedbacks on the deck. Right. So this is the overall sales of the Farmer Source, which we launched in July 2020. And this is something called a farmer score, which we have, where we will evaluate the farmer before onboarding them. And this is the competitive analysis, where we are competing with Grow Farm and DHAT, and other are the potential partners for us, right? So the competitive advantage. So this is a team. It's myself and Vasant Kumar, right? And we have the advisors and the fundraise of 15 crores, what we are looking for, right? And the plan this year, it's 10, 30, and 50 crores is what the overall numbers which we are looking for. So this is the pitch deck, which I wanted to show and get feedback on. Yes, I'll stop sharing this anyways.
No, you can keep the screen share on because
Okay.
if you go.
So also we want to see your face, Vijay.
That too.
Your face is not visible.
Yes, one second.
So Dhruv, maybe I'm just interested.
Yeah. So maybe I'll make a couple of comments. I think this is the kind of presentation we like to see, right? Very clear. Message is very clear. I think a lot of it is visual based. A lot of it is, what I call the Wickham. It comes across fairly clearly. I have a couple of suggestions.
Yes.
This is not so much on the pitch as on the business, but it will be linked to the pitch, right?
Right.
This is an area where you have a huge number of people currently operating. In fact, a lot of people have come to me with this farm to fork option. A lot of people have come to us with traceability. You can actually track it back to the farm, right?
Right.
Now, the important thing here is ultimately, ultimately this is a consumer brand, right? Either it's a consumer brand or it's a Horeca brand or whatever, one of these two, right? Or maybe both, right? And ultimately, in this kind of business, it is the top few brands which will survive, right? And all the others will get eaten up along the way. So given the fact that there is so much competition, the opportunity is big, I agree. But given the fact that there is so much competition, how you will stay ahead of the other guys and how you will grow rapidly, I think that is the key. That is the key because, I'll give you examples. Mahindra is into this. Reliance obviously is getting into this. Your Reliance Fresh. Big Basket is getting into, all these guys are into this, plus a huge number of Chotu players, right? So I think the key message that the investor wants is how are you going to scale up rapidly to become one of the big successful brands. Otherwise, you'll only be operating in a local space. So I think that's the key message. But by the way, since you're looking at, have you already raised it or you're going to approach investors?
No, we are approaching investors now.
Okay. So just send me this pitch decks, because we also do this kind of fundraising at this level. And definitely this is an interest area, except that there's one question you have to answer.
Right, I
So
understand.
in the chat, I'll put down my email ID and please send it to me.
Sure, we'll do
Okay,
that.
but it's a good presentation,
Yeah.
very good presentation. By the way, where are you based, Vijay?
I'm from Chennai.
Chennai, okay. And incidentally, one reason why I wanted to see your face is that your hairstyle and mine are very similar.
Obviously, yes.
Except the color.
Dhruv, what is your email address?
Yeah, I'm just putting it down. I'm just putting it down. Yeah.
Okay.
I put it down, but I realized it had only gone to Mansi. So I'm just putting it down for everybody.
So that's dhruven55@gmail.com.
That's right. And there's another one, which I'll...
So yeah, I put your email as well. I was obviously not in the call to tell, but yes, Dhruv, and my email is there. You can email him or me on that. And Vijay, if you can show your presentation again, I had some design related specific feedback.
Sure.
So if you go down on some of the things that so it's a very well designed deck. First of all, let me congratulate you on your traction as well as how you bringing it out. Some of the things, if you go down like on the slide, the 6th slide, for example, it's a very important slide that you have.
Right.
And somewhere because of the visuals on the right hand side, they're not adding as much value, because you really want them to read the left side numbers first, right? Because that's like your key message in this slide. So instead of using the same font, maybe the numbers can be used, can be in bigger font, and then the rest of the content can be smaller font. So I don't want them to be distracted by, this is a feedback for others as well. A lot of times you'll put visuals that will look nice, but sometimes they don't really add as much value to the overall slide. They might just distract, the investor into reading what they really want to read. So that's like one feedback on this slide.
Okay.
If you go further down on, this one, for example, if you go up, go up, 11, yes, sorry. So I would say that this is a very critical part of what you're doing. I mean,
yes, correct.
It looks very critical, and maybe a little bit more about it rather than the visual. If you can talk what you are doing to do their past performance, what you're doing to their social credibility, just a line or two, not more than that. Don't give them too much information, but this just helps. Okay, what happens because of farmer score? What helps if you evaluate them right? So what is the advantage also you can probably write in this slide?
Right. Okay.
That was just part of something that was missing. I think overall it's very neatly done, and good luck to you. I think already a sort of a green tick from Dhruv after seeing your deck. So I would say that good luck. Thank you.
Yeah, but I agree. Typically these things, a lot of investors are significantly old, right? So they are 55 plus, 60 plus. This font size is not readable. That you need to increase. Otherwise, you're fine.
And because, just a small part, if you write white font on yellow, it's very hard to read. So try to avoid doing that.
Yes.
In fact, one quick thought. Right now, of course, all presentations, all pitches are being made online. But when you make a pitch offline, which means you're in a conference room with a projector, it's a good idea to check out colors and how they appear on a projector, because some of these may not be readable.
Anybody else wants to go next? Please feel free. Again, I had 7 of you shared your presentation. Is Exposit here? Somebody from Exposit? Anybody from this company's name is, because we got 7 pitch decks. Nextmatics, is anybody from Nextmatics here? So we're assuming nobody else wants to show any pitch deck currently right now, right? We can take the other questions. Nalini, do you want to ask that question out? Maybe show your face as well, as Dhruv would anyway insist on that. She's asking, is articulated the mission and vision of the organization of interest to investors evaluating?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Hi, Dhruv and Chetan, am I audible?
Yes, yes. We can see you as
All
well.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a while before I make a pitch deck for investors, and I'm in consulting, like you rightly said, Dhruv. So it might be quite some time. Having said that, I was wondering if stuff like, stating the mission vision or even the values is of interest. It might be interest to my kind of, customers right now, but is it of interest to investors, or it's just extra info that can be done without?
So let me put it like this. Vision mission is a good idea. Don't spend too much time on it. It's a good idea which gives the long-term direction that you're taking. However, the rest of what you're doing has to be in sync with that. Sometimes we have seen, you have one vision mission and what you're doing separately is what you're actually talking about is completely different. That is one. Two is values. I mean, let me put it like this. Values are assumed. If you don't have the values that you're planning to talk about, in any case, investors are not likely to invest. So I don't think that is something which will add any value. So I don't think that makes sense. Vision mission is a good idea. But, like I told you, consulting businesses find it tough to get money. And I had mentioned that earlier for the very simple reason that their growth cannot be, what? See, investors typically do what? They have the option of investing in the stock market where on an average they can make, let's say, 15 to 20% long term, right? Therefore, if they are to invest in startups which are very high risk, right, obviously they want much higher returns, which means they need much higher growth. And consulting business normally, since it is not scalable, it is very heavily manpower intensive, right? Will not be able to give you that kind of hockey stick growth. However, if in your consulting business, you can increase the automated component, then yes, there is interest, right? So either that, or in the consulting business, if you can have maybe a core team and a lot of people who are there as freelancers, right?
Flexible hiring model. Yeah. A
Exactly.
flexible hiring model.
On contract or whatever, right? Or
Yeah.
on a per assignment basis, then you can expand rapidly. So essentially, what the investor is looking for is, are you able to grow at a rapid pace? So that you have to solve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dhruv. And Anshil, are you still here? If you want to ask your question, I know you asked earlier on about
Yeah,
something
hello.
you did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, as Dhruv, that thanks for first of all, thanks for sharing such a good presentation. So, initially, Dhruv said that that one of the strong point for successful startup is earning model, strong earning model. But recently, I read a Paul Graham blog. He said that you should have an idea with strong user base and with no earning model. Later on, after 2 3 years, you can generate some money. So how does it apply to our Indian context,
Okay.
as a, with respect to as an Indian investor?
Okay. So first of all, if you look at the US, right? The US has far more money floating around and waiting to be invested in startups. And the ratio of quantum of money available to number of startups that are there is actually very high, right? And in the US, investors therefore are willing to put in money into startups which right now have not shown an earnings model, but they have to have a customer base, right? Pure idea is tough to fund, right? They have to have a customer base. Maybe right now you're taking on customers free, but ultimately at some stage you have to obviously start getting revenues. In India, it's a little different today. And the simple reason for that is that the number of startups that are available for funding is huge, is absolutely huge. And the number of investors that are available is not that large, right? So I would imagine there are about 15 to 20,000 angel investors, correct? And the number of startups that are looking for money will go into lakhs, right? So the investor has enough choices. And therefore, he first looks at those guys who have shown some level of revenues. If not that, then he looks at those guys who have not shown revenues, but at least have shown a solidly growing customer base. These are the two he will focus on right now. A startup which has a concept, which has a prototype, but which does not have any customer base, does not have any growing revenues, is a little unlikely to get funding right now, unless you're in a space which is very, very hot. So for example, if you're in, let's say, blockchain, and you built a solid product with a prototype, you will get money, right? But if you are in a typical e-commerce kind of space, which is very crowded, lots of people in the space anyway, and you're saying right now you don't have customers, you don't have revenues, it's a little unlikely you'll get funding.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. Thanks a lot.
Just taking a couple more questions, and just to round it off, there's a poll that if you can just pull it, that helps us do these events even better as a a volunteer run organization. We've also shared a link for joining our Facebook group, which is a thriving community where you can ask questions about, and there are 30,000 plus entrepreneurs in that Facebook group. So please join that. I'm also sharing our LinkedIn links for me and Dhruv. Feel free to connect with us after the event. Mansi, would you like to ask your question? I know Dhruv answered it, but would be great if you can talk it out too.
Bunty!
Okay. That was one way to sum it up.
My pet name is not Bunty. Let me clarify.
Yeah. So Mansi had asked question. I think Dhruv, you
Yeah,
you there,
Mansi,
Mansi? Please go ahead.
she's there. She's unmuted. Yes. And Mansi, you have to show your face.
Yeah, I think we cannot hear you, Mansi.
No, she's muted again.
Yeah. So anybody else wants to ask any one question before we wrap it up, or we good? So Sanjay Chauhan had asked before from Model Art that how about my idea is validated but not having enough money to run it through? Should I still ask for funding? I think that you can take.
Yeah, I think I have answered that question. Like I said, if
Yeah.
it's a great new concept, if it's a breakthrough kind of concept, but you don't have revenues, yes, you are likely to get some investors interested. Not too many, but at least you'll get some. What I would normally recommend in a situation like this is, first, you don't go to angel investors. First of all, you go to what I call friends and family, right? Which is your chacha, mama, your uncle, your aunt, your girlfriend's father, your boyfriend's father, etc., right? Because there they will, they will not ask too many questions, and they are likely to help you even before you start getting revenues. But when you come to angel investors, which is external guys, people who don't know you, there they will need some proof, right? So the other possibility, by the way, is if you do not have revenues, but you have a good concept, apply to one of the incubators in your city, right? And there are a lot of incubators right now, because A, they will cut your cost, since you will now you'll now be able to run your office from the incubator. B, very many of these incubators have grants from the government, and they will be able to give you some grant. They will be able to invest some money in your company. So where you do not have the likelihood of getting money from an angel investor, go to an incubator, come up to a stage where the angel investor is likely to be interested.
I think that's helpful. So super. Thanks a lot, Dhruv, again for this discussion. Today was, I think, very constructive. There were a lot of insights that you had given, and I believe to the entrepreneurs and founders here that will be super helpful. And a lot of them should reach out to you now. Especially, I think Vijay and even Santosh had spoken about their ideas. So great. We'll wrap it up here. Thanks everyone for joining in. Please feel free, to show some love on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and connect with us if needed. Take care. Bye. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you, Chiv.
Okay, great. Wonderful.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.